Welcome back to the show. Hope everybody is good out there, man. Today we're starting Start-Sit week number 2 because, week 1 saw a lot of problems. We didn't see a lot of good point productivity that we were hoping for, and we just got concluded with Thursday night football with those Eagles and the Vikings. Was a good contest. Lots of points on the board. I had you covered in the last episode of Boomer Bust, who to start last night, so definitely check those out. It was in the comments, and I'm telling y'all, this week is going to be very interesting. Lots of players we're looking to have a big bounce back, and hopefully, that will transpire this week for week 2 Start-Sit. But let's start with those Arizona Cardinals. They're taking on the New York Giants, who got their culos handed to them in week 1 by the Dallas Cowboys. Both teams 0-1. And at this point, this offense is not very good. Okay, James Conner almost got the boom game consistency rate last week, but this offense is going to be anemic with a Dobbs. There's not a whole lot of firepower here that we're going to be able to trust outside of James Conner and Hollywood. Both mid-risks for me. They got into decent point productivity, but it wasn't overly spectacular. The supporting cast, unless Dobbs absolutely turns a corner, I don't see that we can start really anybody from this roster outside of Conner and then potentially matchup play with Marquise Brown. Giants defense is still good enough to at least, put some pressure on this offense. But the defense held up pretty decently for the Cards last week, so I totally expect that to transpire once again. I'm not really starting anybody unless you're in a pinch and you're starting James Conner, who did almost have 10 points this past week. The Atlanta Falcons, the Dirty Birds, they look good running the football, and we knew this was going to be the MO. Desmond Ridder only got you 8.4 points last week because they leaned on the likes of Bijan and Tyler Algier this past week. 17.3 points for Bijan with 22.9 going to Tyler Algier. Both low-risk plays for me this week once again versus the Green Bay Packers. They're going to try to continue to run the football here in Atlanta to at least set up some level of play action for the pass game. This is going to be what they're going to try to operate like in, I believe for the foreseeable future until Desmond Ridder starts to get his feet under him. Everybody this offseason was talking about Drake London being this beast in 2023. I told y'all, man, this was a big risk based on how they're going to potentially pass the football with a Desmond Ridder. He gave you a goose egg last week, 0 points. You got to throw Drake on the bench right now, even though I'm saying he's a mid-level risk because there could be some commitment to get him the ball this week. Very, very much so. So I believe that it could be anywhere from 6.5 to 10 points for Drake, but he's got to find his way into that end zone, and right now they seem very comfortable running the football. Kyle Pitts, low upside. They just got to get more targets. How can we trust any of these receiving weapons right now? The only players you're really trusting at this point is Bijan and Algier, but going up against the Green Bay Packers, pretty stout defense. You're going to still see some tough sledding running the football if Desmond Ridder can at least, exploit the pass game to some degree. The Baltimore Ravens, it was a 1-0 victory, but it was ugly, man. Lamar Jackson, 7.6 points. There was a lot of poor quarterback play this past week, but Lamar should have a bounce back versus the Cincinnati Bengals, who looked absolutely terrible offensively as well. But the biggest news, J.K. Dobbins, he finds himself on the injured reserve, tears his Achilles, and that's the season for this young man. Unfortunate situation. So now they're rolling with Justice Hill and a Gus Edwards. I'm giving both mid-level risks for these running backs. We're a low-level risk for Lamar Jackson. He's going to bounce back. You know he is. The positives that we did see that this receiving core without a Mark Andrews did see some target share go to Zay Flowers, and he looked stupendous, y'all. I'm giving low risk, fire up Zay Flowers everywhere you got him. What do we do at Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham Jr.? It is very difficult to trust because, there's going to be how many targets going around to these wide receivers? Can Lamar Jackson support it? That is the question mark. There was no more excuses, Lamar. And, you did not showcase that in week 1, so I do expect it to see a little bit better passing upside from these Ravens, especially, Justice Hill and Gus Edwards going to be in the rotational piece and potentially getting Mark Andrews back. He still is questionable with the quad, so if he does suit up, I'm giving Andrews a low risk. He should default back into being the number 1 target in this offense, with Zay Flowers being the guy that can be a trusted commodity to gain yak yardage. After that, Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham, still too volatile for me to trust keeping on the bench or on the waiver wire if they are there. The Buffalo Bills Mafia, baby. What a dreadful showing on Monday Night Football. Those New York Jets defense absolutely took it to Josh Allen and the Bills in that second half. But I am going on a ledge here, man. We have never seen Josh Allen play that poorly in a contest. He looked like a deer in the headlights, like his confidence was gone, was just not the same guy from jump. As soon as he walked out of the tunnel, you can see his demeanor was just not right. I'm calling stud start for Josh Allen. I think they bounce back in a very big way. If I am wrong, that is totally fine because I'm at least going to go on the ledge to say Allen will not let this happen 2 weeks in a row, and he should put up massive point productivity for y'all. If I'm wrong, Josh, you're going to hurt a lot of feelings telling y'all. But anyway, James Cook looked good, 8.3 points on the ground. There was a good commitment to the run from the Buffalo Bills. I love to see it, man. Finally, the Bills got another speed back in the backfield. I love it all day long. James Cook, mid-level risk. I think that you can fire him up in your flex and be relatively satisfied, especially going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Stephon Diggs, obviously low risk. This man is going to continue to put up points for you. He had a boom game last week, and he will continue to move forward. Gabe Davis, high risk. I can't trust it right now until we understand how the Bills iron out this offense. It wasn't on Ken Dorsey. It was more on Josh Allen. Poorly executing the football, and he was not making plays. Gabe right now, He may break out of this, but for me, it's too volatile for me to suggest to start Gabe. I got to put him on the bench until further notice. Dalton Kincaid, high upside for me this week. I do like the play. If you got Kincaid, there was opportunity for this man to continue to get fed the football, and Allen continued to go in other directions. Take what the defense gives you, and I think Kincaid will continue to see his role increase where Dawson Knox will continue to have TD upside. I would rather start a Dalton Kincaid over a Dawson Knox. Fire up Josh Allen, obviously, everywhere you got him because you're not putting him on the bench, but I totally see a stud start bounce back game for the Buffalo Bills. Carolina Panthers taking on those New Orleans Saints. Bryce Young did not look great, y'all. And I mean, okay, there was issues with protection. You get it. He's trying to, he threw an interception. And I mean, okay, at least he found his end zone toss to a Hayden Hurst. You got to like that at least. So what did I say preseason? It was going to be the safety blankets that Bryce Young was going to be looking for. I thought it was going to be more so Adam Thielen first before a Hayden Hurst, but now it's the reverse. It's Hayden Hurst, then it's going to be Adam Thielen. DJ Chark is coming back, hopefully off the injury. He's still questionable with a hamstring. He should suit up in this contest. Still too risky to play, but I mean, we got to see how Bryce Young can at least progress in this offense before we can trust a lot of these receiving options. At this point, Hayden Hurst is the low-risk play for me. I like Hurst this week as well against these New Orleans Saints because the Saints defense looked great last week, and they're likely going to give the bum rush to this rookie quarterback, Bryce Young, once again. Mid-level risk for a Miles Sanders. Could see a lot of garbage time point productivity coming in the pass game for this man as well. Still going to be very tough sledding to find room to gallop through with this offensive line going up against the stout front of these New Orleans Saints. So for me, it's Hayden Hurst, Miles Sanders with the mid-level to low-level risks, and then a high-level risk for a Bryce Young. Not playing that whatsoever. Receiving aspect, we got to wait and see. Keep these guys on your bench until further notice. The Chicago Bears. Justin Fields, man, I mean, can this man get some protection? We thought this offensive line was going to be at least somewhat improved. Did not look great last week. And then I still don't understand the offensive pedigree to only limit DJ Moore to 2 receptions, this past week. Completely went away from DJ Moore. Don't understand it. You got to believe it's going to be, force-fed to some degree from Justin Fields to DJ Moore this week. That's why I got a low risk on Fields and Moore. I think you obviously firing up both these gentlemen. Mid-level risk to a Herbert and Roschon Johnson because, I mean, the Tampa Bay Bucks run defense is still pretty strong, and we still got to understand who's going to take the first hand of touches here. Roschon started taking over as the game did wear on, even though Herbert did almost get you 10 points. Roschon found his way into the end zone, 14.5 points on the week last week. So for me, it's very difficult to at least predict. You got to say first crack is still going to go to Khalil Herbert, where Roschon is going to get into the mix and likely take some goal line upside, I should say. And then you got Darnell Mooney, mid-level risk. I told y'all he was a sleeper last week. He repaid us huge. 13.3 points likely in your flex spot was good and gold all day long. Chase Claypool right now, I mean, this guy might get absolutely benched on a healthy scratch right now. He's just not playing football. He's not blocking. He's not wanting to be out on the field, it appears like, and they should give a young man like Tyler Scott at least an opportunity. He's got some field stretching ability. Give those deep shots to Justin Fields to at least keep the defense honest, and a Cole Kmet with a high-level risk. So for me, low risks for Fields and more. Mooney, I'm definitely firing up at my flex once again. I'm going to go and lean towards a Khalil Herbert over Roschon this week for the Chicago Bears. Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Joey B looked like Joey Trash last week, only got you 83 plus yards. Did not look good. 3.2 points from Joey B. Just gross and ugly. He was so disgusted with himself. He had to go get himself a haircut, so hopefully that charges him up, gives him the juice, and this offense does move. This Baltimore Ravens defense struggling on the secondary with injuries, but they still got a guy like Roquan Smith. He's going to be all over the field once again. We got to say, just like Josh Allen, huge bounce back for Joey B this week as they get, more comfortable with the season starting. Joe Mixon, mid-level risk for me once again. This run defense is still pretty stout, and they're going to give a lot of feats for Joe Mixon. Mid-level risk for me. I think if you have better options, use them over Joe this week once again. But if Joe Mixon is your running back too, then obviously you got to kick him and fire him up. Hopefully he gets you over that 10-point threshold. Jamar Chase, low risk. T. Higgins, low risk. And it feels like, how can we say this? Because they're too damn good to be kept in the stable. That's why. Jamar Chase obviously should get back on track, and 0 points for a T. Higgins last week. Just absolutely an abomination. I totally suspect both these gentlemen will find ways to get open, and Joe Burrow should sling the ball all over the field. I'm firing up Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. I'm going to say if you got a better option for Mixon, absolutely change that out for the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cleveland Brownies taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, Steelers had a dreadful day themselves where the Browns saw some glory and could go 2-0 for the first time in many years. Deshaun Watson looked good. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see if he was going to come back to the Houston Texan. Deshaun Watson that we were used to. He looked good last week, 21.7 points. I got a low risk on him this week. Fire him up everywhere you got him, as is Nicholas Chubb. Almost 15 points for you, half PPR. And I mean, this is how this offense is going to be run. I mean, it's obviously we knew it was Nick Chubb, the thoroughbred. And then if Deshaun Watson can at least deal the football, this offense is going to be something to be difficult to play against, I should say. But I mean, Amari Cooper, low-level risk last week, took a back seat. The ball was being spread around more so than it was focused on one individual. But I got a low risk. I think Amari Cooper has a good bounce back this week than from last week. Elijah Moore, PPR upside once again, got you 7.7, and he's going to hover roughly around that, 6.5 to 11.5 per week, depending on how many targets do come his way. TD upside should be defaulted back to Amari Cooper and Nick Chubb, but I think Elijah Moore is definitely going to be at least that nice safety blanket for you. Full PPR leagues, it's gorgeous. Half PPR, he's giving you anywhere from 6.5 to 11 per week. Donovan Peoples-Jones. Okay, I just wanted to say last week, potentially he had some upside, but it's only going to be hit and miss. You're likely going to see his contest be a 1 out of 4 matchup play, and that's when you start him. Outside of that, he is a high risk for me this week. David Njoku, this is a week I do believe they got to utilize the tight end spot to at least keep this Pittsburgh Steelers defense moving from side to side, because TJ Watt is going to be coming after Deshaun Watson. But I like the low risk plays right now for these the Cleveland Browns against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who should be ready to play this week. Mike Tomlin will not allow his team to look as bad as they did last week, 2 weeks in a row. The Dallas Cowboys and this unbelievable defense. Can you believe what we saw? These guys were so fast on the field, and the addition of Stephon Gilmore is going to continue to allow, guys like Diggs to roam the field and take more chances, where Diggs is, Stephon Gilmore, is that guy, the very reliable, island type of corner that can lock down one side of the field, which allows even the pass rushers to get to the quarterback that much more. Going up against these New York Jets, and I mean, the numbers don't look great for the Cowboys because they blew out the Giants so quick. They didn't even have to pass the football. Dak Prescott, 6.3 points. CeeDee Lamb, 9.7. Brandon Cooks, 3.2. So, I mean, you got to understand, game flow was the issue here when it came to fantasy point productivity. They should be able to at least compete with the New York Jets, but the Jets defense is very strong as well. I got a mid-level risk on a Dak Prescott. Fully expect a couple turnovers coming his way. Tony Pollard, low-level risk. This guy was a machine. I had my doubts. Can he sustain this for the entirety of a 17-game season? We shall see. But I like Tony Pollard once again, low-level risk. They will lean upon this man, try to get him in the open field as the mismatch to get this Jets defense moving. CeeDee Lamb, low-level risk as well. We saw Sauce Gardner struggle a little bit with a Stephon Diggs. I think it could be a similar situation with a CeeDee Lamb. We'll see how it goes. Sauce is too darn good to be, following up a, not necessarily bad game, but it wasn't a great game with another bad performance. So I think CeeDee Lamb is still decently reliable in this contest, where Brandon Cooks is the reason he is dealing with an injury, his knee. They were hoping the MCL sprain was going to be healed up by now, but he is a definite injury risk. He could only be used as a decoy if he does suit up, but I would not be surprised if he does sit, which would leave Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb to be your top 2 targets in this offense, and I'm defaulting the more target share going force-fed to a CeeDee Lamb. Jake Ferguson, you are not starting. Gallup, if Cook sits, is going to be a mid-level risk for me. The Denver Broncos taking on those Washington Commanders, the Commies. And okay, Russ, let's ride, because he was cooking last week enough to get at least close enough to win against these Las Vegas Raiders. They're going to have a tough task against this Washington Commanders defense, who are getting Chase Young back from the injury from the first time, I believe, since his ACL injury. Big news for the Commanders, the Commies, to get against Russell Wilson and start rushing him a lot more. I got a mid-level risk on a Russell Wilson. You know, he's going to be one of these guys we can utilize potentially as the season goes on as a bye-week filler. Don't expect the world from him this week either, because that Washington Commies defense is put together. Javonte Williams and P. Ryan, I'm giving, again, TD upside to P. Ryan and a mid-level risk to Williams. Williams, to me right now, he looked a little bit slower, you know, where a Breece Hall looked great on the field coming back from the ACL. Vontae didn't look as sharp. He was running on his toes, which clearly tells me that he is not comfortable yet with the ACL recovery. I'm still going to call it a mid-level risk because he's going to get his touches, but I got to believe by like week 6, if he sees no setback, then they're going to unleash him. He's going to feel more comfortable taking the punishment against the Washington football team, or Washington Commanders. You should probably sit both these guys, Williams and P. Ryan. I got mid-level risk and TD upside, but it's totally up to your team dynamic at this point on which running back you're playing. Jerry Jeudy, he still is the injury risk, even though he was not on the injury report, the final injury report, so he should be suiting up in this contest. I'm going to keep him on my bench one more week. I want to see what he does, because, I mean, tweaking that hammy when they were talking potential IR for this man feels like a rush back for me, so I'm keeping Jerry Jeudy on the bench this week, where I can say fire up Cortland Sutton, low-level risk for me. At least, you know, Russell Wilson finally found that chemistry with the tall wide receiver you're looking for. End zone opportunity is always going to be here for Cortland Sutton. Low-level risk for me. Marvin Mims and an Adam Troutman are basically high risk for me right now, because Greg Dulcich is out with a hamstring injury for the time being. The Detroit Lions taking on the Seattle Seahawks. Detroit still basking in the glory of beating those Kansas City Chiefs opening night. And they look good, man. Jared Goff, for me, low-level risk versus the Seahawks defense that did not look good last week. And I mean, okay, they got a lot of things to fix. So until you show me you fixed it, I'm definitely hedging the bets and going with the guys. Jared Goff, fire him up, low-level risk. Jahmyr Gibbs did not see near enough opportunities, only got you 7 points in his first NFL contest. And I mean, again, like we're hearing a lot of these coaching staff say, we got to get more touches to these electric players. Gibbs did look like one of the fastest players in the NFL on this past week 1. So absolutely fire this guy up with 15 to 20 carries plus touches. I think that, you know what, he's going to have a very big day. David Montgomery ran the ball extremely well. I think you could fire him up against these Seahawks also, because they will be splitting touches enough where at least Monty's going to be able to get some TD upside and get down the field, at least to try to score touchdowns. So I think they're both safe opportunity plays this week, as is Amon-Ra St. Brown. 16.1 points. He's going to do it again. He is Jared Goff's safety blanket. Back when Goff came to these Lions, he said he wanted to build an Amon-Ra like a Cooper Kupp, and he's doing it. So, I mean, he's a no-brainer start every single week. Josh Reynolds is a mid-level risk. He boomed last week. He looked decent enough as a supportive piece in this offense in the passing game, because Marvin Jones looked absolute horribly, and I mean, it could be time to hang up the cleats. Marvin Jones, high-level risk for him. We're a mid-level for a Reynolds. Sam Laporta, he is now, instead of going high upside, I got mid-level risk. I think the target share is only going to continue to increase for this man from Jared Goff as well. Sam Laporta, for me, is a start this week once again. Green Bay Packers taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Jordan Love, y'all feeling the love for Love finally? I told y'all, hidden gems. You cannot sit behind Aaron Rodgers for 4 years and not learn something. 23 points. Jordan Love was one of the better fantasy quarterbacks this past week, and going up against the Falcons defense, yes, Bates did look good, and he will be roaming that field all on the back end, but Jordan Love looked nice this past week, and I think the biggest issue is going to be Aaron Jones. Will Aaron Jones suit up with that hamstring injury? It is an injury risk. If he's playing, you start him. That's just how it has to be. If he's not 100%, this could take away from the rushing upside and, you know, at least the opportunity that Jordan Love will have fewer pressure points coming his way. But they do got a guy named A.J. Dillon who can at least take some pressure off and run the rock as well. For me, if Aaron Jones does not suit up, yes, you fire up A.J. Dillon. If Aaron Jones is playing, you suit him up over the rest, man. Romeo Doubs, low-level risk, caught himself some touchdowns. He looks good. I mean, right away, the defaulted number one target without a Christian Watson. Watson is still dealing with a hammy injury. He is a questionable, likely game-time decision. We'll see. Haven't heard any update at this point to say either he is playing or he's not, so we shall see as the weekend does go out. Jayden Reed, he's got low upside right now. Wasn't enough passes to go his way at this point, but that should increase as we get to the midway point of the season. So low upside, do not play Reed. Fire up Doubs and Watson if they are playing. Doubs obviously definitely fire him up. And Luke Musgrave, I'll give him a mid-level risk at this point. I am not playing him. I'm looking for better tight end spots at this point. Houston Texans, they got some bad news as the week wore on. CJ Stroud pops on the injury report with a shoulder injury. You got to believe it's got to be arm fatigue at this point. Haven't seen anything otherwise to suggest he sustained an injury from this past week or in practice, so I'm calling it arm fatigue right now. Mid-level risk, you're still not playing CJ Stroud, but for Dynasty Leagues, you guys are chomping at the bit like I am to see Stroud actually progress. He had 42 dropbacks this past week without throwing an interception. That it was an NFL record, and that's what you want to see for a rookie who is progressing in the right direction. So mid-level risk, I'm hoping to see a little bit more from him this week versus the Indianapolis Colts defense that is leaky and can give up plays. Dameon Pierce did not have a great game this past week, so you got to believe the dedication to the run will come back this week. Start up Dameon Pierce with low-level risk versus these lowly Indianapolis Colts. Nico Collins. Everybody's on the Nico Collins thing. I said I wanted to, at least see him a couple times before I'm going to preach the good graces. He had 11 points. I'll give him a mid-level risk this week. He could be the go-to target for a CJ Stroud as we're moving forward. Big body wide receiver, and he should get the likely target share move in his direction to be the number one wide receiver. I want to see a couple more weeks of it before I give the, low risk play here. I'm giving a mid-level risk, as is Bobby Trees. I told y'all PPR upside. What I say for these rookie quarterbacks, they need a safety blanket, and I knew Bobby Trees was going to be the guy to do that for him. Robert Woods, PPR upside, he is a decent flex, will get you anywhere from 8 to 12 points every single week, likely in this offense. Tank Dell, low upside right now. I wanted to see a little bit more like we saw from Zay Flowers, so he is on the bench until further notice, but at least he almost got you 5 points and got sprinkled in with some targets, but the biggest upset was Dalton Schultz. I thought he could have been the safety blanket, but it is look likely going to a Robert Woods. So unless CJ Stroud, if CJ Stroud does not play in this contest, everything changes here, and I will update that in the comments for the Houston Texans. But if he does play, this is kind of how I see the risk rank for this offense here in Houston. Those Indianapolis Colts taking on those Houston Texans. Everybody's a high risk except for Anthony Richardson at this point. I mean, Rich did good, but man, you got to protect your body, sir. I understand you're like 250 pounds, but you got to not take as much punishment as you took. 21 points. You got to believe with that rushing upside. And the greatest aspect was it. So I said Michael Pittman last week. I wanted him on my bench as a wait and see. Yes, I hurt you guys on your fantasy team because he went off to almost 20 points, half PPR. But this is the thing. The entire game until, the fourth quarter, that's when he started peppering Michael Pittman. So now at least you understand he was saying, the hell with it, let's just throw in his direction and see what Michael Pittman can do. This was the best case scenario that we could see as we enter week 2, and there is no Petrie and Ward, I believe, for Houston, so there will be opportunity for Anthony Richardson to throw the ball around to a Michael Pittman. So low risk for a Rich, mid-level risk for a Michael Pittman, and I'll give PPR upside to a Josh Downs. It started early on in the contest, and then they completely moved away from it. So I do like the upside here for at least the star players to do some damage for these Colts versus the Texans, who do have some injuries on the defensive back end. Jacksonville Jaguars, they're taking on the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, who is 0-1 this year already. You got to love it for, if you're against the Chiefs. But I mean, okay, fine. It wasn't Mahomes' fault, but here we'll talk about these Jaguars before I start talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. Trevor Lawrence, low-level risk. I like this offense a lot, and I think that they're going to do a lot of damage once they continue to get the chemistry moving in the right direction. He found Calvin Ridley early and often. All y'all that dog Calvin Ridley, I haven't heard people say, it's like a Josh Gordon coming back to the NFL. You guys were smoking some of that good stuff because we knew that Calvin Ridley looked fresh, he was rested, and he was on a mission to prove that he was still one of the better wide receivers in this league. Trevor Lawrence found him early and often, and then as the coverage moved to his side, he started going toward Zay Jones. So for me, low level risk for a Trevor Lawrence, low risk for a Travis Etienne. The speed, man, he looks fast too. I'm saying Jahmyr Gibbs looked like one of the fastest running backs in the league this past week. So did Etienne. Looked super lightning quick. High-level risk for a Tank Bigsby right now. Got to see his role increase before we can sing those good graces. Calvin Ridley, low-level risk. You fire him up everywhere you got him. Christian Kirk, I was wrong on last week because I thought maybe, if the coverage was going to go like it did happen. The defense did adjust and went to Calvin Ridley's side like I predicted, except Trevor Lawrence threw the ball to Zay Jones instead of Christian Kirk. So that's the only miss that I had. At least I got half the, scheme of it right. But in this week, I think mid-level risk for both Kirk and Zay Jones. You can fire them up if you have them. I want to believe because they're going to have to pass the ball enough to beat, Patrick Mahomes and these Chiefs this week once again. Mid-level risk for an Evan Ingram as well. If you got him, you're firing him up because, tight end's so volatile anyway. He almost got you 8 points this past week. Now we're talking about these Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes taking on these Jacksonville Jaguars. Low-level risk for Patrick Mahomes. It was not his fault this past week. Still got you 20 points in week 1, and it was the drop passes from Sky Moore and from Kadarius Toney. As you can see, Kadarius Toney's not even on my board this week. If you want to start him, I wish you the best of luck. Low-level risk for a Patrick Mahomes, and he does get his guy Travis Kelce potentially back this week, even though he still is on the injury report with that knee injury on the questionable. If Kelce's playing, you fire him up. Mahomes is a no-brainer, obviously. Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon, I'm giving mid to Pacheco, high to A. McKinnon, even though I could even flip this because we could see potentially if we see any more drops from these wide receivers, Jerick McKinnon could have a massive PPR upside show this week, so definitely keep that in mind. If you got the kahunas to play a Jerick McKinnon, he may repay you, but it is very much boom or bust. Sky Moore, mid-level risk. You got to believe he's going to have a better game than what we saw this past week. I'm still keeping him on my bench until further notice. Same with MVS and Rashee Rice. The dropping problems, and MVS we could never trust in fantasy football. Rashee Rice is touchdown dependent at this point, you want to believe, as a dropping problem. I told y'all in preseason was an issue with 4 of them. I want to see Justin Ross on the field. Until Justin Ross comes on the field, I am not supporting any of these wide receivers, telling y'all right now. So for me, it's Mahomes and Kelce to start in this offense. You pick your poison as you see fit. I'm keeping Moore and Rice on the bench until further notice. Los Angeles Chargers are taking on the Tennessee Titans. What a game it was versus those Miami Dolphins. Justin Herbert looked good. Still can't get the win in those close games. The defense was horrific, man. Facing a Titans defense that, not very good. So I think there's an opportunity to gash this defense quite a bit. But the biggest news, Austin Eckler is likely out for this contest. He's a doubtful with the ankle injury, meaning Joshua Kelly and my guy Isaiah Spiller should get on the field. They had the Dotson kid in for Spiller last week, and Spiller was an healthy inactive player. Only reason because Dotson can take back kicks and punts, so there was no room for Spiller to make it on the roster. But Kelly and Spiller should see at least the bulk load of the touches, where Justin Herbert should be able to throw the ball a little bit more. Keenan Allen, low-level risk. Mike Williams, mid-level risk. Fire up these two gentlemen. I think they will have good days versus the Tennessee defense. As for Palmer and Quentin Johnston, high-level risks until further notice, as is Gerald Everett, high-level risk. They were using Donald Parham, and he scored a touchdown that should have been going to an Everett, so I'm not firing up any of these guys. For me, yes, you can play in Joshua Kelly because of volume upside for sure, but Herbert and Allen are definite no-brainers. Los Angeles Rams taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Matthew Stafford looked a lot better than I thought. This entire offense looked a lot better than I thought, and it was because of Puka Nacua. He looked damn good, man. He looked like Cooper Kupp out there, but he is now dealing with an oblique injury. Y'all paid all that fab dollars to get him on your roster, and you may not even be able to play him this week. Is it a good thing because they're playing the 49ers defense that absolutely shut down the Steelers in week 1? But Matthew Stafford, mid-level risk. He's going to sling the ball, even though this defense is still very good. He's going to find opportunity where he can see it fit. Cam Akers, high-level risk. He's on my bench until further notice. He did not look good. Got like 25,000 touches, and he only got you like a 1.8 yards per carry. I do not like Cam Akers. Did not like Cam Akers in the offseason. I just don't know, if I'll ever get back on the wagon for Akers. Where Kyron Williams gets a mid-level risk. There was a lot of opportunity, and he showed. He flashed, and okay, he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's got good hands, and he's got good rushing upside. So I think that Kyron Williams is definitely the start here, even though taken, against the 49ers defense. If you have better options, I will definitely tell you to suggest to take them. If you do not, then obviously Kyron Williams over Cam Akers for me. Van Jefferson continues to be the ghost of, once past I was so favorable on this guy coming out of the Florida Gators, and he just has not repaid. I mean, until further notice, you cannot trust anything coming from Van Jefferson, but Tutu Atwell, he is mid-level risk because of the big play speed upside, and if Puka Nacua is there, you got to believe the PPR upside will definitely be there as well. You could see an early exit, though, if you do start him, so definitely giving him the injury risk designation, where Tyler Higbee, if Puka's out, you got to think that he's going to see a lot of targets to come his way. That was kind of my MO last week on Higbee over Nacua, but Nacua took it over Higbee, and it could be the reverse this week versus these 49ers. The Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Buffalo Bills. The 0-1 Buffalo Bills looking to make a statement at home versus the Raiders. Jimmy G looked good enough, and this is what I continue to say. Is Jimmy G elite? No, not at all. Can he win in this league? Abso-frickin-lutely. And he showed what he could do versus those Denver Broncos. Mid-level risk. If you waited for your quarterbacks or you're in super flex leagues, you can definitely fire up Jimmy Garoppolo this week once again, because he will throw the ball. He'll get you anywhere from that 13.5 to like 18 points a week. And I mean, that's decent numbers for quarterbacks, especially when we saw this past week Joe Burrow get you 3.2. So, I mean, Jimmy G is not a great start, but he's a safe start, especially against the Bills, who will give up yardage. No kidding, man. Josh Jacobs, low-level risk. Looked a lot better than I thought he would. Knew he was not going to boom this past week because, I mean, no training camp, no preseason. You got to believe that there was going to be some, pains early on. But I think this week versus the Bills defense, who can give up a lot of yards on the ground like we saw with Breece Hall, Josh Jacobs definitely fire him up this week, as is Devontae Adams, low-level risk. You can never sit this man. Who is going to take the spot of a Jacoby Myers, who is out with a concussion? Because Jacoby was absolutely lights out this past week. So you got to think, if they're not going to force feed Devontae Adams, who is it? DeAndre Carter, Hunter Renfrow, or the tight end Michael Mayer? All very much high-level risks. The only reason why I'm giving a mid-level risk to a Hunter Renfrow is the PPR upside, where Jimmy G is absolutely, that's his home, and he loves exploiting those types of wide receivers. So if you're in a pinch and you got lots of injuries on your team, okay, maybe Hunter Renfrow, but you can't do it with good conscience, man. Everybody besides Garoppolo, Jacobs, and Adams, I'm not feeling too warm and fuzzy about playing this week versus the Buffalo Bills. Miami Dolphins taking on those New England Patriots on Sunday Night Football. What can you say, man? Tua looked great, and everybody that was bashing Tua for the performance because the Chargers' defense wasn't good, how can you put that on Tua? He took advantage of every opportunity to come his way. I liked his game a lot. He's a low-level risk, even against, a Bill Belichick defense that gave Jalen Hurts some fits. I think that Tua in this offense in Miami is scheming up enough. 85% of plays had motion from a McDaniel coaching tree. I love it all day long, how they can get Tyreek Hill exploited. That's what they want to do. Raheem Mostert found himself on the injury report early this week. Now he is off, mid-level risk. Speed is still there. He does look good, and he will get goal line upside. Devin Achane, high level. We cannot trust it until we see it. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, both low-level risks. You got to understand what Bill Belichick loves to do. He will take away the best player, or try to take away the best player on the field, and that is Tyreek Hill. So you got to believe double and triple teams could be coming his way, which means Jalen Waddle time is going to likely have the other option. Come on, man. Only got me 9.8 points this past week, but he's also dealing with an oblique injury. He's not on the injury report. Fire up Tyreek, fire up Waddle without even thinking. And then River Craycraft, who's going to be the third option here? I mean, he looked decent, 11.5 points. I believe he found his way into the end zone this past week. I thought it was going to be Braxton Berrios. It still could be. He was sprinkled in from time to time. I mean, it's not consistent enough for us to trust in any fantasy circle. Maybe deeper leagues, if you're in 14, 16-team leagues, maybe River Craycraft is one of these guys you're looking in the direction. Outside of that, we can't trust it whatsoever. So Tua, Hill, Waddle, Mostert, I'm pretty comfortable firing up these guys this week once again. Those New England Patriots taking on the Miami Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. He's back, baby. Mac Money Jones. You got to love it. Mid-level risk for me, 25 points. He looked like the Alabama Mac Money Jones. Ramondre Stevenson, low-level risk once again. Came off the illness. Still gave you almost 12 points this past week. Going up against a weaker Miami defense versus the run. They will give up at least decent amount of yardage. So I think Ramondre is the great play over Zeke. Juju, high-level risk. Devontae Parker, high-level risk. You're not touching it. They said, man, Bill Belichick was true to his word. Kendrick Bourne, they wanted to get him more involved. He was definitely more involved, 21.4 points this past week. And Hunter Henry's back from the dead like a phoenix rising from the sun. Here is Hunter Henry back in the fantasy mix. I mean, mid-levels for both Kendrick Bourne and a Hunter Henry. I don't have a problem playing Mac Money Jones this week with Ramondre either. The New England Patriots at least look a lot better than I thought they would, and they will challenge as long as Mac Money Jones can continue to deal the football. New Orleans Saints taking on the Carolina Panthers on a doubleheader Monday Night Football. I mean, okay, a week 2 doubleheader, that's interesting. The league's trying to change something. Okay, fine. I like more football on Monday. Derek Carr, low-level risk for me versus the Panthers defense that lost J.C. Horn. I think that, they're just scratching the surface. Wait till Alvin Kamara gets back on this offense from his suspension in week 4. Jamal Williams did not look good. You're keeping that man on the bench right now, as is Kendre Miller. You can't trust the running backs here right now. Jamal Williams is not a lead back. He's a complimentary goal line back as well, so I do not trust it whatsoever. You can, however, trust Chris Olave, CO2, and my guy, Michael Thomas. I mean, low level for both, basically, with PPR upside. 2 AMT, slant boy. I mean, he's just going to continue to grow. I mean, this is going to be this New Orleans Saints offense. And you do have an interesting dynamic now with a Rashid Shaheed. Boom or bust for this man. He will have you a stinker 1 point 1 week, or he'll pop off for the 16.5 like he did this past week. He's got wheels for days. He will be the field stretcher with a Chris Olave. There will be at least 4 to 5 targets to come his way. You got to believe per week, as long as they can keep Taysom Hill off the field. Like, it's enough. We've seen enough. Don't do it anymore. But Shaheed, I mean, again, if you're stuck or if you want that extreme high upside, like if you're down because Thursday Night Football got you down, you want some high upside, that's when you're thinking about starting a Shaheed. Juwan Johnson, mid-level risk. I told y'all last week I did not like the week 1 play. A lot of people disagreed with me. I told y'all Juwan, everyone believes just because Derek Carr had Darren Waller that he was just going to force feed the tight end spot. Man, he's got wide receiver thoroughbreds. That's where he's going to go first. So Juwan is going to have maybe, again, like the 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 games that he's going to absolutely go off and boom for you. The New York Giants taking on these Arizona Cardinals. They need this game, but here's the thing. Everyone's going to scoff at this. I got Daniel Jones, Daniel Pennies, as a low-level risk this week because coming off a loss, a big blowout loss, I believe it was 20 points or more, Daniel Jones comes back. He's 7-0. He's got 4 rushing touchdowns and I believe 9 touchdowns to 0 interceptions in those contests following a blowout loss. I'm definitely on board with the Giants having a bounce back against these Arizona Cardinals. Even though the Cardinals D looks decent enough, I think Daniel Jones should at least give you the 18 to 25 points this week that we're looking for. Saquon Barkley gets a stud start for me. He wants a bounce back after being basically stymied by those Dallas Cowboys. He needs a big game to feel good about himself, and I think he gets it here as well. This receiving core we cannot trust. Look in other directions. Hodgins, Slayton, Campbell, Hyatt. I got them all in order. High risk, mid-risk, boom or bust for Hyatt. We can't trust it until they actually prove it on the field right now. Keep all these wide receivers on your bench. Darren Waller, surprisingly enough, is not on the injury report with the hammy. Good news for all of us Darren Waller owners. I'm firing up Darren Waller this week. If he's playing, you fire him up because PPR upside will be absolutely glorious, man. The New York Jets taking on those Dallas Cowboys. God, are the Jets cursed, man. I feel for you guys. Even as a Bills fan, I feel for you. How the hell can you get Aaron Rodgers hurt in the first 4 plays for the entire season with the Achilles? I mean, you can't write this type of bad luck. So now you're going back to the well with Zach Wilson. Zachary Wilson going up against this Dallas Cowboys defense that is going to be on fire once again. Zach should be running for his damn life. And I mean, for me, I got to say mid-level risk for Dalvin Cook, Breece Hall, and Garrett Wilson. You got to feed the stars. You got to try to at least control the clock, be on the ground where Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall should be get at least, you want to say, running 30 carries plus, I mean, for this offense to at least hang on to the clock, try to move the chain. Zach Wilson, high risk. Lazard, high risk. Hardman, high risk. And Conklin, high risk. You're not touching any of it outside of Cook, Hall, and Wilson. And I'm even putting in the caveat on that, buyer beware, because it could be another bad game for an offense going up against the Dallas Cowboys defense that absolutely looks for real. No kidding. The Pittsburgh Steelers, taking on these Cleveland Browns. Excuse me. And I mean, Kenny Pickett, small hands Pickett, did not look good this past week. You got to expect a bounce back to some degree against the Cleveland Browns. Divisional contest, they got to look a lot better than they did. Mid-level risk for Pickett. Najee did not look good. The 49ers stifled this running game with Jaylen Warren as well. Both got 4.3 fantasy points. I'm still on the notion that Najee is going to return to form at some point. It's Najee over Warren for me right now. So Pickett is on the bench. Start Najee versus these Cleveland Browns. Even though the defensive front gave the Cincinnati Bengals fits, I do believe you got to get Najee involved. You got to run the ball. You got to get the ball in his hand in the pass game to at least make the defense honest. George Pickens was not a happy man after the Week 1 contest, saying he wanted a quarterback that could at least get him the damn ball. I fully expect at least 10 targets coming Pickens' way this week, especially without a guy like Deontay Johnson, who is now out with a hamstring. Doubtful they have him listed, but he's already out at least for the next 2 weeks with this hamstring injury, which also does bring back in Allen Robinson, who led the team with fantasy points this past week with 8.9. So Pickens and Robinson, you can definitely play this week. Robinson more in my flex, where George Pickens, I think you could play him as your wide receiver 2-3, because there should be a lot of target share to come this way. You cannot win without giving it to your top guys, and those are your top guys. High risk for Calvin Austin, where Pat Freiermuth once again finds his way into the TD upside category. Like I'm telling y'all, as soon as they get this offense rolling in the right direction, this offense should be moving a little bit more smoothly than what we saw in Week 1. San Francisco 49ers taking on these Los Angeles Rams. Brock Purdy looked good. Low-level risk for me this week. I think I've seen enough that I could trust it even against the LA Rams, who did look good. Low-level risk for Brock Purdy. Fire him up. CMC, fire him up to a stud start once again. 24 points. This guy's just damn automatic. 89.6% consistency last year? I mean, this is what CMC does, man. He just hits for you every single week. Deebo Samuel, mid-level risk. 8.8 points this past week, took a massive backseat to a Brandon Ayuk, who is, again, for me, a low-level risk. You kind of feel like the tide is turning where, being the gadget, the type of, can we say that he's a wide receiver 1 Deebo? No, I don't think we can. He's kind of that in that middle, wide receiver 2 gadget type of guy. And with CMC running the ball as well as he is, there's no need for Deebo to run the ball. So I got to say, Ayuk is the guy where Deebo's going to pull coverage, be the over-the-middle guy, the yak yard guy. I think you could still start them all, man. Purdy, McCaffrey, Samuel, Ayuk. I feel very much comfortable to play these guys against the LA Rams. George Kittle, low-level risk this week. You got to think some target share is going to come his direction to potentially find his way into the end zone, as he is no longer on the injury report with that groin injury. Fire up the 49ers. It's going to be ugly for these LA Rams. They are the best team in this division. No kidding. Seattle Seahawks taking on these Detroit Lions. Geno Smith, baby, mid-level risk. Did not look good last week. He's even yelling, "Oh my God," when he saw an Aaron Donald come in his direction. Funniest shit I've ever seen in my life. No kidding, man. But Kenny Walker the third, low-level risk. I think you can fire up a Geno as well in Detroit on the turf. I think he's going to play fast. This team should be able to play fast on the turf in Detroit. Kenneth Walker the third, low-level risk. Should be a good dose of rushing upside, where a Charbonnet is a high-level risk. Can't touch it until we see it. I thought, maybe by like week 6 we see the, volume share get split around, but it is Kenneth Walker the third's backfield, and we should not have even thought twice about that. DK Metcalf, he's a low-level risk once again this week for me. Fire him up. Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith-Njigba. I got mid-level risk for Lockett, mid-upside for a Njigba. I'm still firing up a Lockett this week over Jackson Smith-Njigba, and a high-level risk for a Noah Fant. So for me, I do like Metcalf and Lockett over Njigba this week. Until Jackson Smith does show us the target share is going to be plentiful, you got to go with what we know. Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on those Chicago Bears. Baker Mayfield, he's feeling dangerous. And he looked good enough to do it. I said it again, this is the third time I'm probably repeating it to y'all. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin can uplift a Baker Mayfield, where a Baker Mayfield will not uplift this offense, if that makes sense to y'all. So we can continue. As long as Baker does not turn this ball over, Mike Evans and Godwin will make Baker look good. So for me, that's what I was the biggest question mark this offseason, dropping Mike Evans down my ranking boards. But now that I'm seeing it, I do like it a little bit more. If you were trustworthy and went after Mike Evans, good for you. I think you had good kahunas on that one. But Baker Mayfield, mid-level risk. I'm not running to the bank to start him, but unless you have to, but I would keep him on the bench at this point. Rachaad White, Mid-level risk, and this is going to be the last week I'm giving it to him until he shows it, because Sean Tucker could be taking over carries. Did not look good. White did not look good this past week. The run game may be this way the entire season. We got to see, but Mike Evans is a low-level risk. Fire him up. Chris Godwin, fire him up as well. We saw, I believe, Gordon for the Bears, defensive back. He is out for some time with an injury, so there is going to be ample opportunity. Boomer bust for Trey Palmer. This rookie does look good. Found his way into the end zone, but not much after that, so definite boomer bust, where Cade Otton is a high-level risk for me still at the tight end spot. Do not trust it. Do not like it. Tennessee Titans at the Los Angeles Chargers. Ryan Tannehill, mid-level risk, looked like hot garbage. I don't really foresee him having a great day, but I'll give him a mid-level risk because the Chargers defense looked god-awful this past week, and there should be at least some opportunity for Tannehill to move this ball. Stud start for a Derrick Henry, where Austin Eckler, Raheem Mostert found some room to gallop through this Chargers defense. I think Derrick Henry's going to have an absolute field day. They won't be able to stop it whatsoever. Injury risk to a DeAndre Hopkins is another reason why. If Hop does not suit up, it's going to be even more plentiful news for a Derrick Henry. Everything would go to the default of target share to a Treylon Burks mid-level risk. If a D-Hop does sit, I think it could even go to mid-level to low-level risk. But I mean, again, we're relying a lot on Tannehill, so that's a big if in that respect. If it is Burks with no D-Hop, I think flex play for Burks is decent, not great. I mean, if you want to play him, I understand. You want to bench him, understand that as well. But I would feel comfortable enough without a D-Hop that Burks can be played. And then, I mean, Okonkwo, I almost forgot this man's name. If D-Hop also sits, I think he gets a mid-level risk because we could see some target share definitely go to his direction. But out of this offense right now, Derrick Henry is the only trusted commodity that I like. Last one we got is the Washington Commanders, the Commies. And I mean, Sam Howell. What did I say about Sam Howell this past week? The leadership, or this entire offseason, even going back to his draft class, the leadership qualities in this man will carry this team to victories. He fell behind with some turnovers, some ugly play versus the Arizona Cardinals. Second game in the NFL, mind you, and he still was able to find his team and manufacture ways to win the football game. It will continue to grow for Sam Howell. He is too darn good as a football player. He's a leader. He has that confidence. He forgets quickly. Sam Howell, mid-level risk for me. I think he's absolutely in super flex, easy play for me. Brian Robinson, mid-level risk. There's going to be opportunity to run the ball here on these Denver Broncos. We're in Antonio Gibson, high-level risk. We need to see more from Eric Bieniemy feeding this man the ball. Until we do it, he's on the bench. Don't even look at Antonio Gibson right now. Wide receiver time is very interesting. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel. I got mid-level, low-level, and mid-level in that order. Terry, Dotson, Samuel. And I think Dotson, once again, is going to be that guy where Terry, still dealing with the toe injury, going to be going up against Patrick Surtain. Do not like the matchup whatsoever. Even though Terry could cook a Surtain from time to time, I like Dotson and Samuel this week over Terry McLaurin because it is the easier option, the easier completion for a Sam Howell. Logan Thomas, he's back on the radar at least for low upside play. I wouldn't play him this week, but at least we know he's back on the radar because Sam Howell found him at the end of the game. Looked decent enough to understand he's back on the fantasy radar. But there you have it. That is week number 2. Start sit, all teams, all positions. Anything you guys want to talk about? You got start sit questions? Throw them in the comments. I think I was hitting basically every single comment in there and giving you darn good advice that hit last week. So if you have any questions start sit wise, definitely throw it in the comments. I will get back to you, but nevertheless, as always, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, jump in those comments, give me your thoughts, and we'll see you next time. I am out.